Restricted for deleting our name.
So I've told Leena Tej that we have to call her Dr. Leena, being a doctorate in and attorney of law. So that
I told that it's not necessary.
so that befits her stature well.
Dushan bhai, we are live.
Okay, great. I think let's the count is going up, so let's wait for 1 or 2 minutes and then we start.
We have total 75 participants, Dushan bhai.
Yeah, so we start, right? Welcome. Very good morning to Leena. Welcome on this webinar today. And thank you to our chairman, Mr. Shankar Shinde, and his entire team out here, Mr. Vinod Sharma, Honorary Secretary, Mr. Shashidhar Haber, Tej, Neerav, everybody out here. This is one subject that our members are looking up at with a very great interest. It's always important for all of us to understand the intricacies and laws, international laws pertaining to that. So, friends, those of participants, those of all you have joined, we have with us Dr. Leena Jesutain. She is a managing director of Recupex, which is an international law firm. And she is a very sought after cargo claim in case of any eventualities during transit by exporters, importers, freight forwarders, marine insurers. She is famous for her widely effective loss prevention strategies that boost the bottom lines of and make the importers and exporters aware what they need to do. Also, from forwarders' perspective, it is very important that we understand from her. She is the founder of Recupex, a global cargo transportation lawyers, and they have, very importantly, they have presence in India also at Mumbai. So I won't take much of a time. Leena, it's over to you. Please carry on. Thank you for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mulani, for very warm welcome. I would like also to extend my gratitude to Federation and to Chairman, Mr. Shinde, for bringing up this topic for our members. It's very timely, end of the year. So hopefully, freight forwarders, all of your members can review the strategies for 2021 and do better in terms of loss prevention. I have only one goal for this masterclass, is to share with all of you workable tactics, how to reduce cargo claims, how to win cargo claims, and how to prevent damages. Before we start talking about this, I would like to share with you very briefly my background. Before founding Recupex, I worked for almost a decade for MSC, Mediterranean Shipping Company. I was a defense lawyer for them in different countries, in different geographical locations. My job was not to pay cargo claims. And the hardest part of my job was to witness how many freight forwarders, how many exporters and importers don't know how to defend themselves when cargo is damaged in transit by actual carriers, and how to recover losses. Regardless of country, regardless of company size, of cargo, everybody struggled. So that was primarily for me to be on a mission and help spread the word what exporters can do to recover losses. Without any further ado, let's dive into our masterclass. Here are the only key numbers that all of us needed to remember. 1 out of 10 containers in transit is damaged. It's full containers. It can be with reefer cargo, with dry cargo, it does not matter, but it is damaged in transit. It's industry statistics. Now let's go to shipping line statistics. Shipping line statistics show that only 8 out of 10, not only that, all 8 out of 10 cargo claims are rejected by shipping lines. And only 1 out of 10 cargo claims is settled by the carriers at the 15% of original value claimed. These numbers shows you the extent of loss that industry absorb. For us, it is vital, important to understand how cargo claims were treated pre-COVID. And here I focus specifically to Indian exporters and freight forwarders. So pre-COVID, when volumes were at spike and freight rates low, cargo claims were heavily neglected by shippers. Due to manual process, it is very labor intensive to pursue cargo claims after carriers. Human errors are prevalent, which document to submit. Usually teams don't know, they forget to follow up. So all various human errors can happen in the process of cargo claims. Time involved to pursue cargo claim is also excessive, if it is done by the freight forwarder directly or by exporter directly. Very often shipping lines pretend they don't receive your email, then they tell that they investigate your claim, and this is month after month after month when claim becomes time barred, and cargo interest receives zero. And there are, of course, still some prevalent misbeliefs among Indian exporters and freight forwarders, such as cargo insurance is the only way to be paid when cargo is damaged. Or I ship FOB, I don't care what happens in transit. Or if I submit claim, shipping line will blacklist me. So these misbeliefs still guide some exporters and freight forwarders to shrink and not to claim losses. And as all the participants of this masterclass will be aware, none of this misbelief is true. And before COVID, losses were absorbed by exporters, importers, and freight forwarders. So exporter and importer shared, you absorb 50, I absorb 50, or in most of the cases, exporter pays nothing and don't pay to, importer pays nothing and supplier out of India has to absorb absolutely all losses. Freight forwarders, of course, they offered commercial gestures extensively, reductions in freight, or additional space on the vessels, or they just paid cargo claims out of their liability insurance. So that was the situation pre-COVID. What happened after COVID and during COVID was that a lot of freight forwarders, they became on the edge of surviving. And COVID was really a ticking insolvency bomb for most of exporters as well. Freight rates increased dramatically this year, and we don't see the situation will change in 2022. Cargo insurance premiums increased by 1/3 as well for the next year. And as all of us are aware that 95% of cargo exported from India is not insured at all. And here we don't speak about very expensive machinery or pharmaceutical cargo. Here we speak about general cargo transported in reefer or dry containers. There is another challenge which freight forwarders started to face is liability insurance providers. For freight forwarders, all of us, you would agree, it's very difficult to obtain liability insurance cover. And if you obtained, it's very difficult to make them pay for your cargo claims, which you paid your shippers. It's really ongoing uphill task, and we have very few success stories. Then, of course, the situation is that equipment shortage, fewer free days at destination, increased detention and demurrage charges. All this piles up on the cost, on business cost for freight forwarder to run, and margins become thinner and thinner. And of course, there are still continuous COVID outbreaks and excessive delays. So all of this made freight forwarders look for ways to boost bottom lines, to help their shippers, and to decrease their commercial gestures, which we make for their shippers, and stay in business. So what freight forwarders, what trends do we note from the freight forwarders with whom we work directly in India? Liability insurance cover and commercial settlements are not affordable anymore. Freight forwarders need to retain customers, exporters through value-added service. So it's not enough to offer track or trace service or space on a vessel. Shippers demand reassurance what you will do as my freight forwarder when things go wrong. And of course, we note that some freight forwarders demonstrate increased interest to upskill their teams and educate their exporters how to avoid claims. This educational process builds a stronger relationship between exporters and freight forwarders as well. So it's not only dedicated to prevent losses, but it's also to show to exporters that we as a freight forwarder, we want to work with you in a longer term, and we care that your cargo will be delivered in a good condition. And freight forwarders, we also notice that they help the exporters to submit claim documentation, to gather claim documentation, sometimes master bill of lading, sometimes ETAs share, sometimes documentation guidance, to ensure that shippers can at least recover partially. And most importantly, we note that freight forwarders show deep interest in collect evidence better themselves and their exporters, claim supporting evidence. And here we will discuss with you our core question of the masterclass: how to defend claims. So the easiest way to defend claims is to collect key evidence. What freight forwarder and exporter needs to show to shipping line? Primarily, you need to show that cargo was loaded in good condition at port of load and discharged in damaged condition at port of discharge. We do this by the way of pictures, videos, in-house survey reports, or third-party survey reports, right? And when we show the damage evidence, we need to also show how the cargo was damaged in transit. We don't care where it was damaged at the first transshipment, at the second transshipment. For us To win cargo claim, it's only important to show that cargo was damaged in the time span from port of load to port of discharge. And to better illustrate, here you will see several examples of our clients. The first picture here, you see it was done with iPhone by exporter directly. Cargo loaded in good condition. You see craft paper on the side panels. You see dry bags. And on the second picture, you see the hole, very tiny hole in the container, and water damage to the bags. So having these pictures, nobody needs expensive surveyor at the destination, because it is a clear cut, the damage happened in shipping lines custody. What we still receive and what is a bad evidence. So you can communicate to your exporters as well. Pictures like this, or like this, or like this, don't show the damage extent. Is it 2 coffee beans damage, or is it full container wet? Here again, we see onions on the floor of the container. Bags open, smashed, so it's obvious fault of a shipper during loading. Here we see sound bags of rice, but client is claiming total loss. Or for example, here there was no factory from Delhi who ships wedding dresses to United States. Again, from this picture, we cannot see that this specific wedding dress is damaged, or a whole load of wedding dresses damaged, and what type of damages. Same here, grape exporters. They send usually 2 pictures showing in the hand damaged half kilo of damaged grapes. It's not enough for carrier to believe that the loss extent that exporter claims was really damaged. Here you see 5 onions of damages, right? It's not enough. So that is the bad example. But we also have a good example. So the pictures, same pictures taken with iPhones, no additional cost, right? These pictures illustrate how the damage happened. We can see, high up here, container number. We can see here container hold, right? And then the water leaks. We can see here container falling, reefer malfunction, cargo pilferage during transit, because it was clearly shown a cut in the side panel by the importer who took pictures. These type of evidence are vital to defend a cargo claim. It is very important to understand the evidence gathering process, that if we claim certain damages, we need to provide certain evidence. So for example, we submit to shipping line VGM, warehouse, weight slips, seal number for pilferage claims, right? If we have water ingress claims, we need to show water damaged cargo and how it was damaged. Leaked, whole, rusty container, improper door gaskets. If we submit reefer claims, we need to show to a carrier that I loaded pre-cooled cargo at origin and it was discharged rotten at the destination. So this is the thought process which shipping line use. Depending on the nature of your claim, evidence have to submit it accordingly. Nobody cares about the seal number if you are claiming water ingress to your cargo, water damage to your cargo. So that's why when submitting claims, you need to be very strategic. Speaking about best evidence gathering practices, we always recommend freight forwarders and exporters to send damage notification to shipping line within 3 days after delivery to the final destination. This document alone serves as an invitation to join survey as notification about the damage, and it helps to put burden of proof for the damage on the shipping line's shoulders. So legally, it's much more easier to win claims when notification is sent within 3 days of delivery. With freight forwarders with whom we work, we have systems in place where they just send same notifications every time before opening container. They have practices to inform shipping line even without knowing if really cargo is damaged or not, because it helps them to follow the process in case damage happens. Now I would like to spend sufficient enough of time to cover hot questions, which important for all of you. And if I don't cover some, then we will have time to discuss it in Q&A session. So often we receive the question, when exactly transit delays are recoverable? So transit delays from the shipping lines are recoverable depending, first of all, on the nature of the cargo, then depending on the delay, how many days delay was. And to illustrate better my point, I will share with you 2 examples. From Nova Shiva to St. Petersburg, there were grapes shipped. Transit time was 7 weeks. Shipping line delayed 1 extra week. So it was transit time in total 8 weeks. Then, of course, gate out process in St. Petersburg is another week. So we can speak already about 8 to 9 weeks of time span to take cargo for the receiver. Thompson grapes shelf life is 2 months. Right? So our point when we pushed this claim against the shipping line was that in the booking confirmation, you ensured 7 weeks, knowing that grapes shelf life is 8 weeks, and you delivered within time frame of 8 to 9 weeks. And here is an obvious example of shipping lines responsibility. And we settled this claim. Another claim we have is Nava Shiva to Jebel Ali, transit time 1 week, standard transit time, and delay was 6 days. Cargo was onions. Onions shelf life is 6 months. Temperature was maintained in both cases, right? So the second claim, exporter cannot expect to be paid by the shipping line because delay was not excessive in comparison to commodity which is being shipped. Let me be very specific. Delays are recovered when commodity shelf life is shorter than the delay period, then it is recovered. When commodity shelf life is longer than the delay period, such an onion example, then it's not recovered. All right. Second example, which we see Indian exporters struggling is LOIs, in particular one line and a few local ones. After vessel sales, they insist exporters to sign preempted LOIs. These preempted LOIs usually looks like standard drafting, and then either manually inserted container numbers, either inserted bill of lading numbers for the entire week you shipped. And these clauses of LOI state that if cargo arrives damaged, exporter will never ever claim any losses. This is illegal from the carrier side. They cannot ask exporter to sign these kind of documents because it contradicts international conventions. And we successfully proved winning these similar claims against the shipping lines where they have no right to ask this document to sign. The problem is that exporters, not knowing this, they sign the documents and then they don't claim. So that is the saddest scenario which can happen. Now let's talk about abandoned cargo and freight forwarders liability. Post-COVID, and in particular as well with a fewer transit free days at the destination, the risk of abandoned cargo increase. In particular in those destinations such as Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Middle East. Importers, when they see that, let's say, the demurrage charges are substantial, they just prefer to change phone number, not to reply to anyone, vanish, and then shipping lines claim losses from freight forwarder. So I receive very often questions, can shipping line claim these abandoned cargo losses from freight forwarder? So based on a bill of lading clauses of all the shipping lines, they can claim abandoned cargo losses and associated cost, destruction cost or auction cost from the freight forwarder, because a freight forwarder under bill of lading represents cargo interest and bear all costs. So if shipping line sends 2 reminders to a cargo receiver in Saudi Arabia, they don't show up, then shipping line typical scenario is they keep adding demurrage cost, and one day they wake up with a demurrage invoice. Here, the only way for freight forwarder to challenge abandoned cargo cost is to show that you as a freight forwarder did well KYC, that you as well informed your shipper and your receiver about the consequences of not picking cargo, to show that you were active as well in notifying a receiver or a shipper constantly. And lastly, every shipping line depends on the location, have to destroy cargo legally after a certain period of time. So let me give you an example. In Saudi Arabia, shipping line must destroy abandoned cargo after 30 days when it was not picked up. So it means they cannot charge you demurrage invoice for 90 days or 100 days. Because here is negligence from the shipping line to wait for so long, keep demurrage cost piling, and then get back to you as a freight forwarder with outrageous invoice. This they cannot do. We note as well that when freight forwarder demonstrates with the documents to the shipping line that we duly notified regularly shipper and receiver about abandoned cargo, that we duly checked that they are actual business, and we informed them at the time of booking about the consequences of not picking up delivery. We see these examples that shipping lines refrain from imposing these invoices on freight forwarder. So it's not black on white, but you have to show that you are diligent. All right, the fourth question. What is the timeline to submit cargo claims to ocean carriers? Standard answer is 1 year after the day of delivery. Some shipping lines play the game telling that you did not submit a claim within 3 days after delivery, we don't pay you. So now you know that 3 days after delivery is only to put burden of proof on the shipping line. But you and your exporters have 1 year time span after the day of delivery to submit cargo claim and pursue it to the shipping line. If you see that 12 months is approaching, then you need to take action. Your exporter needs to take action either to litigate, to issue court documents or to ask carrier time extension. Time extension is very often overlooked. It costs nothing and it's very easy process. So how does it look like? Suddenly exporter wakes up that I have a claim which will be time barred tomorrow. So what they have to do, they just send email to the shipping line. We kindly ask you time extension to settle this claim amicably. And usually shipping line grants 3 to 6 months of time extension. So bear in mind that this opportunity exists. All right, number 5. Can freight forwarder impose exporters to buy cargo insurance? Here we see different examples. The short answer is no. Nobody can impose exporter obligation to buy cargo insurance. The same way as freight forwarder who issue house bill of lading, they cannot tell in any form that if cargo will be damaged, we will never ever pay you. Cargo insurance is prerogative of exporter. If we want to buy, we buy. If we don't, they don't. And the number 6 question is how to secure claims. So let's take first example. You as a freight forwarder issue house bill of lading. In this scenario, you are fully responsible to your exporter. It does not matter that you never saw this container, that you never touched this container, that you don't own vessel. You are carrier on house bill of lading, and then it means that you are responsible. So it also becomes your headache to solve specific cargo claims. When you act as booking agent, then you are not responsible for cargo claims, but you have responsibility for abandoned cargo. Because on the carrier's bill of lading, it is very clearly stated that if you are freight forwarder, booking agent, facilitator, or anyone acting at some point on behalf of the exporter, you are all collectively responsible to the losses shipping lines suffer. So I hope I was able to answer this question. If you issue house bill of lading, you are responsible for the whole mess. If you are acting as a booking agent, your responsibility is limited to abandoned cargo issues mainly. And as we are going to a Q&A session, I would like to draw your attention to aftermaths. What happens if you as a freight forwarder and your exporters don't pursue cargo claims? Every claim you absorb is money saved to the liable party, actual carrier. I work for a shipping line. I can put my hand on my heart. There are so many claims, genuine claims, which are rejected or overlooked by exporters for many reasons, and they are never ever paid. And this situation will not increase. We will not wake up one day and shipping lines will not start paying cargo claims. It will remain like this. Those who have loss prevention processes in place, who pursue their claims, they will be paid. Those who expect only, they will never be paid, because shipping lines, all of them, they make outrageous savings just by not paying cargo claims. Second point, every claim you as a freight forwarder absorb, it sets a precedent to actual carrier how to handle your claims. So if Lina freight forwarder never pursue cargo claims, Bobo shipping line will treat my all shipments, my all claims the same way. Oh, Lina just submitted, they don't pursue, we disregard, we drag, and then it will end up there. But if you set the precedent that, we defend our exporters' claims, shipping lines will be much more vigilant. They will start paying you maybe the first claim you will not recover in full. that they will invest much more time to look into your claims, into the merits of the claims, and when it's genuine claim, you will be paid. When cargo claims are not pursued, you as a freight forwarder, you also don't have visibility on shipping lines' performance. Let's look at the current situation. Every shipping line offers very expensive freight rates. Most of them offer very similar transit conditions and 3 days at the destination. For you as a freight forwarder to make a final decision, cargo claims could be one of the way to differentiate a little bit better carriers from the rest of the crowd. So the ones who pay cargo claims without playing games, without rejecting, without dragging, are the ones you might consider to work with in the first place. And if your exporters submit claims, or yourself, you facilitate claim submission as a freight forwarder, bear in mind that 95% of all submitted claims are being pushed into time bar. So it means when the problem is hot, claim is being submitted, but then everybody becomes busy. Shipping lines tell that we are still investigating claims, and month after month after month pass, and freight forwarders and exporters at the end of 12 months receive zero, because shipping line says, oops, it's already time bar. You are not entitled to send us any more reminders. So have in mind these numbers. My goal with this masterclass was to tell you as well that cargo claims is one of the areas that you and your team and your exporters can control today. You have a system in place. I showed you how to collect evidence. I showed you numbers. You know, if you don't pursue claims, what it costs to you and your exporters. Now the ball is in your hand. And to facilitate the process, I would like to offer all of you, whoever wants, a free legal template. So the first template is a letter of protest and notification to join survey to be sent to ocean carriers. Best scenario to be sent within 3 days after delivery. This is a lawyer's drafted template where you only need to change date, location, time, and container number. The second legal template is a pre-shipment cargo survey template. So you populate it to your exporters and you tell you, every time you load a cargo, you need to fill in this one-page survey. So at least they will be basically covered, because most of the time exporters today, we are not covered at all. We don't have any evidence. And of course, post-shipment cargo survey template, where again, they will have to check cargo condition. They will have to check that they collected pictures, they collected pictures or videos, and they inspected container condition at the time of destaffing. Very often, importer receives damaged cargo, destaff cargo, empty container returns back. And then all evidence that carrier provided very poor quality container are gone. We sell these templates. The value is $599 for all attendees of this masterclass. Is absolutely free of charge. Please shoot me email if you want, and we'll gladly provide this to you. Here is our contact information. We work with exporters and importers globally, with freight forwarders as well. India is our big focus to help exporters recover losses better and do better financially. That was all I wanted to share with all of you, and I would like to open floor to all Q&As or scenarios or case studies that you have.
Thank you very much, Lena, for the lovely, lovely, enthralling session. I'm sure it was an eye-opener for everyone, as it was for us as well. So before we move into Q&A, we would like to ask if any of the office bearers would like to say a few words about the session and their thoughts. Vijay sir, maybe request your thoughts, sir.
Sorry, I did not understand. Was it a question?
No, it wasn't a
for
question,
me?
Lina. Dr. Lina, it was basically, I was just inviting our past chairman and our vice chairman, Mr. Sashi, who was in the meeting, if they would like to say a few words that before we move to Q&A. Sashi sir, Vijay sir.
Thank you, Tej. Thank you, Lina, for a beautiful presentation. It is really very helpful for our members to do that. Of course, I have no specific questions. It's really wonderful presentation. Thank you. Nothing more from my side, Tej. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay sir. I would request Nirav to come online. Nirav, let's go to the fun part of the evening, which is the Q&A. But before we start, we have about 130 people here, and we just want to keep everyone. So have you all enjoyed this session so far? Has it been an eye opener? If it has, just say yes in the chat. Only one? Yes. Well, you can say no also. That's an option.
Definitely.
Superb. So everyone's paying attention. That's a good sign. So Nirav, can I hand it over to you to fire the first question, please?
Thanks, Tej. Thank you, Lina, for a wonderful presentation. Tej, I believe there are quite a few questions which have been received, and most of them, I believe, are already covered through our hot question slides. Let me just quickly go through a couple of them. And so I believe the ideal time frame a consumer should inform about a claim has already, I believe, is covered. What happens if there's a leakage and the survey was not done? Who will be responsible for the loss is one of the questions that members have asked. Would you like to take that, Lina? Dr. Lina?
Sure. We don't know what kind of leakage. Was it cargo leakage or was it water ingress? So let's take both scenarios. In the first case, let's imagine that exporter ships vegetable oil, and cargo spills in transit, and then of course importer tries to claim losses. In this kind of instances, it is mostly important to prove that cargo was duly packed and duly loaded at the origin. So if you take your bottles or a plastic bags or bottles, you must demonstrate that everything was dry, that the bags were separated from each other, and exporter did a due diligence in loading this cargo carefully at the origin. And then when the leakage happens at the destination, you can always claim losses that, container most probably was mishandled during loading or discharge operations, and that's how the leakage happened. So this is a scenario which legally any exporter can run, and most probably they will win, regardless of cargo surveyor or non-surveyor at the destination. Now let's take a scenario where leakage is through container, damaged cargo. Let's take commodity. Give me commodity. Whatever, from top of your mind. Steel, all right. Look, steel can condensate, but let's take steel, right? Steel arrives fully rusted. We know that it's not condensation because it's heavily water ingress. The floor is wet or side panels are wet. If importer does not take evidence of pictures that there was a hole, that there was a rust, there was improper roof repair, then to win this claim becomes harder. If you don't have any evidence, then you use the same tactics as in oil. And in the first scenario, you prove that everything was loaded perfectly at the origin, and you received a cargo at the discharge heavily water ingress. But the best case would be still, it does not matter that surveyor was not present. Take your iPhone as exporter, as importer, take pictures. Sometimes you can take 10 seconds video to prove that really this is container number. This is a improper door gasket, and here is my wet steel. It's so easy to win these kind of claims when we have simple evidence. Believe me or not, majority of the surveyors who are paid $600, $800 for survey report, they are not even aware of this. They take random pictures at the cold storage or at the warehouse. And then shipping line tells, prove me that this cargo was in my container. My containers are all new, right? So you see the struggle where we face when we don't have evidence.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the elaborate explanation. In fact, there was a similar question, which had come where say that if the shipping line, how much is the responsibility involved of the shipping line for the damage to the cargo because of the poor condition of the container, where the terms are CYCY. So that's one of the question. Would you like to take that individually?
Yes.
Or, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's take one by one. Look, with the shipping lines, port to port or CY, when it comes to claims, the strategy is very similar. The poor quality of container. Usually they reject claims based on bill of lading clauses telling that shipper had obligation to inspect container at origin and rejected, they are not happy, right? But if container is rusty, where you can clearly see from the roof with your iPhone that rust opened during transit and water infiltrated, right? These are hidden defects or inherent vice that shipper at the origin was not able to identify. And the carrier has to provide a seaworthy container for transit. So if you have this evidence and these arguments, then you have a claim as well. But you need to prove that your actual container was bad and the damaged container happened in transit. I cannot load cargo where the floor is broken, right? And then claim damages later, because me as a shipper, I have obligation to inspect. A container has to be clean, odor-free. We know this, right? So, but if we can prove that me as a shipper, there was no way I could see that this rust or this repair will end up opening up in transit and water infiltrate, or the door gasket will not, be closed properly, then we have a case.
Great. So, Dr. Lina, I have a question which kind of interacts with the next one. So, if an exporter or an importer does not take insurance, right, how should a freight forwarder secure themselves either under the standard trading conditions or standard terms and conditions? As you're aware, in India, when you issue a multimodal transport document, you assume the liability, and it's much higher than all the other three conventions that's there. I would like to add one more question to this in what you mentioned. When you said when the freight forwarder is a booking party, he's not liable for the rest of the case. However, he's liable for detention. Why is that? If there's, and this for the interest of all, why is that? And what recourse does the line have to come back to the booking party?
Yes, so let's start from the second part of your question. If you read the bill of lading of a shipping line, who is a shipper? It's the first clause of every bill of lading. So booking agent, freight forwarder, everybody acting on behalf of shipper is considered as a shipper. So it means is liable to shipping line. Booking agent falls under this clause very clearly. It's clearly said, and that's why every shipping line will come after booking agent. It's easy. They have your contacts. You know, somebody in Saudi Arabia, in Malaysia, you know, we run in bushes, close the garage, end of the story. But they have your contacts. For shipping line, it's they know that you will still be working with them. So they send 2 emails to receiver does not show up, you know, they come to you. So legally, they have this right. And then it comes, you know, from your side, negotiation. We did all this, we did all that, we send all reminders. And if nothing works, then you check how many days cargo becomes legally abandoned in every destination, in your concerned destination. And remember my example with Saudi Arabia, that is 30 days. So it means shipping line cannot charge you 90 days of demurrage because they had obligation to legally destroy cargo after 30 days. Right? Now, going back to your first question, what freight forwarders can do to
protect themselves in case of the buyer and seller not taking, not protecting themselves. Because typically what happens is, a buyer and seller will enter into a transaction, and either it could be that the product goes bad in case of perishable cargo, or in other instances, it could accrue additional costs. So what shelter does the freight forwarder have?
Yes. So, and to go one step further, the worst case scenario is then your exporter comes to freight forwarder and tells, I withhold payment for a freight. I don't care, you do the magic, you pursue, you pay my claim, I gave you load, it's damaged, and I will not pay your freight for the rest of the half year, which is due. So that is the worst case scenario, which we see happening very often. They cannot do this legally. That's why we always encourage freight forwarders to be active in claim process, right? So what the first recommendation for freight forwarder is, when you accept booking confirmation, send a one-page letter to every exporter, which will be titled as good cargo loading practices. So for example, if your exporter is exporting bananas or other cargo, you say, make sure it's pre-cooled, make sure you have pre-shipment survey, make sure you have pictures, all this, you inform your exporter up front. This will help not only to win cargo claim, but this will help, most importantly, to educate your exporter not to throw also bad claims at you, expecting 100% settlement. It will also manage their expectations that if you don't follow these guidelines, which you receive with our booking confirmation, don't come to me with 2 coffee beans on your hand that my cargo was total loss, right? Because they will already be aware what they need in terms of evidence, claim supporting evidence.
Super. Thank you for such a detailed answer. We are in fact seeing a big problem with the merchant clause, which is being added on the bill of lading, where we've seen a lot of backlash even from the trucking fraternity, because the coverage of that is so wide. I mean, if a surveyor surveys cargo, I mean, ideally they could be covered under that speaking. So. Two additional questions which we have. One, you've covered in brief in your hot slides. The biggest challenge that a lot of the freight forwarders, not only in India but globally, face is that you are put up, the freight is booked, or just before the freight is booked, you are put up with LOI, and that LOI has coverage which is pretty much beyond the scope of the transport legislation per se. Now, in the current situation, in an earlier time, it was very easy. You could say, okay, I don't want to use you. I'm going to go to another line, and you would probably get your way across. But in the current situation, it's like getting a booking was a difficult situation. What can a freight forwarder or logistics service provider do to protect themselves under the same situation? We saw this happening globally with two major carriers as well. As Fiara, we took a strong position against that, especially in the UK. BIFA took a position for their members. What could we do as a trade body, and what could the individual member do in a situation like that? And question number two, which is a very, very common problem. I know it's slightly beyond the scope of the subject, but usually you have containers which are seaworthy, but they are also fairly old. And often when you return the containers, you are put at ransom with a damage fee or a repair fee, which takes place. Now, most often you are asked to give a line of confirmation before the equipment gets offloaded, and then you have a joint survey, and then the matter gets resolved. How could one protect themselves against that?
Yes, excellent questions. So the first question with LOIs, what freight forwarders do. You mentioned very well that globally associations such as yours take a very strong stance against shipping lines. Bear in mind that not every shipping line exercise LOI strategies. There are only a handful of LOIs. So you already, as association, can identify them by gathering information from your members. So legally, based on international transport law, applicable conventions, it is absolutely nonsense. It's illegal. Carriers cannot do this because this document obviously aims to use carriers' liability, which they cannot do, right? So the first action will be you as association, you claim them to revoke nationally. You take example of BIFA, you take other examples who successfully won, and you approach these specific shipping lines. Second example, as of today, what can we do? Because I need to load the cargo today, is you drag and you don't sign. If they don't load, this is really worst case scenario, but we had success stories where our clients were pushed, they signed, and then we were able to revoke these LOIs. If you sign LOI, the best way would be sign empty LOI. Don't add container number of bill of lading number, just sign. If you want to know to load your cargo, you sign, you pretend, okay, I signed, because when it's half written document, it's not legally binding. Nobody, when we lawyers step in the process of LOIs, we tell to the carriers, prove to me that it was for this specific shipment, and we cannot prove it, right? And then we drag them into a forged documents scenario, and they prefer just to pay these claims and to abandon LOI questions. So these are the tactics which you can use today. But of course, the bigger goal would be for association to approach certain shipping lines for the collective action. Now the second question about containers. If you take, or if importer takes cargo container pictures at the destuffing with a simple iPhone, no shipping line will be able to charge you container repair or wash fee. You know, in every country we have additional fees, and we're even more dodgy. But you need to have pictures. And then you tell, what did you repair? You see container at the discharge was fantastic condition, roof and sound condition, cargo discharged, there is no way, no idea of the forklift, you know, and so on. Usually they impose these fees when you don't have this evidence, or they check randomly. You know, if you don't claim this back, if they pay you, why not to collect this income as well? But if you present pictures, container was returned timely, in good condition, clean, we don't care about your wash fee and about repair damages. And here is very interesting to mention, because we sometimes repair cost is $100, sometimes $70, right? But when we take the scope of multiple containers at the end of the month and on the year, it becomes a very substantial amount which importer should not pay. We can do, really to wrap up this container question, is we can do so much with our iPhones to recover real money. Just by taking pictures, taking 10 seconds video. It's self-explanatory, it's easy to prove. And it helps a lot of time, accelerates claim settlements, and as well, it helps to waive imposed invoices.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lena. I think it's fantastic. The question is the big if. We constantly as trade. In fact, I think that's a good takeaway as a best practice. We should encourage all our customers, to take photographs not only at origin but even at destination. Nina, would you like to take the last question, and then we can conclude?
Sure,
Sure.
Tej. Thank you. So just taking a cue from your last explanation, a few members of ours have asked in this case, when there is an import consignment into India, and there is indeed, so what happens is, usually there are two questions that I'm combining here. One would be when the goods are being offloaded at that point of time, at the warehouse, and at that of time there is a damage observed. So usually these kind of damages where there is unloading and loading activities involved. So what kind of insurance claim you would recommend in such cases where we should? So usually we have transit insurances which do not cover these kind of activities. So your recommendation on certain insurance policies for cargo handling, which is loading and unloading. And second is, in case there is a damage to the container which has after the goods have been unloaded at the warehouse, and there is a damage to the container which has to be returned back to the shipping yard. So on what are the kind of insurance covers that you would recommend that to avoid these kind of issues? So at the time when we are returning the container, so that $70, $100 kind of expenses, which there is always an ambiguity involved. So here I'm just shifting to the question where initially where Tej had asked that the condition was poor. Here we are seeing that there has been a damage. In such cases, how do we cover these kind of damages? So yes.
Very good question. Here I would like to share with all of you experience that our client, local Indian freight forwarder, had with container insurance. As all of you are aware, Maersk and other shipping lines, they offer container insurance to cover this kind of cost. The problem with this insurance is that they charge you per container, and there is a high deductible. I don't remember, but I think deductible is like 2,000. So it means that these tedious repairs which they impose importer to pay will never be covered by the insurance or the shipping line, right? Because deductible is just too high. You have to completely bend, dismantle container to be paid, right? So container insurance is not really solution from my point of view, because every insurance provider will push for deductibles, right? And they will not pay from $0, from first dollar, for the damage. And then, they calculate, okay, what is the total volume of the freight forwarder, and they very quickly will add up annual premium. So it's a huge money waste, and it's a huge payment upfront, because for this they will insist on upfront payment. My recommendation would still be, in the first instance, you collect evidence that container was in good condition. If it was damaged during offloading, make sure you go after warehouse. That's it. If it is your warehouse, then okay, you adjust, you know how not to repeat the same mistakes. But we have seen examples where when you submit claims, you know, container was in good condition, here is your forklift, here is your, you know, you damaged in this way, here are our pictures, you pay us for this repair invoices. And we start dollars claims, you know, so they know that you will not back down. They will start paying. Of course, you need to vet warehouse. It cannot be in the middle of forest or middle of nowhere, you know, no insurance, nobody, and no reliability. But usually when you start building a relationship with warehouses, you put it up front that we will claim losses if you damage container. We take pictures, so we document it very well, be aware of what's waiting for you. And we have seen many good examples in India and Africa where even number of container damage reduced just because of you setting the tone. We will work like this from now on.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for the explanation, Dr. Lena. I would now, we have a few more questions, but what we do is we compile them, and Sagar from FFI would be sharing these across to you for all the answers which we can, you know, further share with our members. And over to Mr. Vinod Sharma, Secretary of FFI. Sir, kindly.
Thank you, Dr. Nirav. Dr. Lena, what an insightful session we had today. It's indeed a knowledgeable session for all of us, for our members. The main shocking was that 8 of 10 applications are rejected. And only 1 out of 10 claims, that is 10% claims, are being settled. That is to only 15% of the value. That is a great information for all of us. Thanks for informing us the best practices and claims where the claims are being rejected. Best practices that you should take before, during, and after the stuffing the videos or photographs to mitigate the seriousness of the rejection of the claims. It's a indeed insightful session for all of us. I thank you all for this insightful presentation. I thank our chairman Shankar Shinde for initiating this webinar for all of us. I thank our chairman elect Dushyant Mulani ji for introduction. I thank our immediate past chairman Vijay Kumar ji for gracing this occasion. I thank Tej and Nirav, Dr. Nirav, for initiating and guiding us during the question and answer. I thank the participants, the most important 130 participants across India. They are most of the freight forwarders. And from the presentation, Dr. Lena, we came to know that only 95% of the cargo is insured, not insured. Only 5% cargo is insured from India. So all freight forwarders must take this information and guide. And thanks for informing our members, recommending and responsibilities for the freight forwarders. Overall, a great webinar. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
I am really touched by the questions, by the interest, by warm welcome. Thank you so much, everybody, for organizing, for contributing. It's my deepest gratitude to each and all of you. I know how hard freight forwarders work to deliver goods, to make their communities happy. And I wish all of you a very happy end of the year, holidays. Stay healthy and let your business prosper.
Happy New Year, Dr. Lena. Happy New Year to everybody. Yeah.
Everyone, we are closing the webinar.